Thank you everyone for joining our Thriving Circle for this week. This is going to be a really, really exciting one and one that I am sure will resonate with many people. I've also been personally looking forward to it, as I know a few others have been too. This week's Thriving Circle is going to be about conscious relationships. And obviously relationships, not just from an intimate level, but we have relationships, with others, our family, our friends, our coworkers, even relationship, or most importantly, the relationship with ourselves, which kind of reflects outwards to all of that. So we're going to talk about all this juicy stuff with our Soul Connect practitioners joining us this week. We have Yasmin and Roger. So I'll give you a moment to introduce yourselves to everyone, and we'll get going. Yasmin, you want to go?
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Yasmin. I am a certified relationship coach and spiritual mentor. I'm super excited about this topic because obviously it's one of my favorites. So, and it is an area where I have, suffered the most in, which is why I decided to pursue becoming a relationship coach. And, a little bit about my story is at 21, I had a spontaneous spiritual awakening. And I was in a very unhealthy relationship at the time. I was struggling with depression and anxiety. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I was just very confused, bit of a lost soul back then. And as I started to grow and get into personal development and evolution and learning more about myself, my relationship started to suffer. And the reason why is because my partner didn't necessarily see things eye to eye. We didn't see things eye to eye, and he didn't want to do the work to move forward. And I was very expansive and I wanted to grow and do different things. And I was into spirituality and all these different modalities. And, he didn't want to. And I felt like there was this wedge between us. And I was like, let me try to force him to grow with me. Because that's what we all do, right? We're like, let me try to change you because you're the problem. So I tried and didn't work. We hit a wall. We got to the point where we both were pretty tired and we were like, this isn't going anywhere. And that was truly the breakup was my catalyst to pursue relationship coaching and to help other people find themselves and really look at their own shadows and their own baggage so they can have and develop healthy relationships. So, yeah.
Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing us. Such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And Roger.
Hi, I'm an intuitive empowerment life purpose coach. And so, and it's so inspiring to hear what Yasmin is saying because it took me forever to figure that out. I had a series of failed, horrible relationships. And I thought that there's got to be something wrong with me. That's got to be it. I'm just doomed until I understood that what was happening is that I was discovering who I was through these relationships. Everyone is not going to do that. Everyone will not move through things in that way and look at things that, I was going to go up and do a video earlier saying, is having a toxic relationship good for you? Because that became the thing. Everybody said, oh, I don't want to have any toxic relationships. And I thought, okay, well, yeah, I've had a lot of them. But what I've come out of learning it is that it helped me shape my career, my life, and understand who I was. And so, and again, I know Yasmin, she figured that out so much earlier. And that's the other thing I've talked about here too. We all come to these things at different places in our lives, and no matter how old we are, young or whatever. So this is going to be good.
This is. Oh, it's so beautiful to witness how each of you have kind of experienced that and grown through it. And I love what you said, Roger, about like, are toxic relationships useful or helpful? But absolutely, I think it's part of that contrast, like, because how would you know what a non-toxic relationship feels like if you don't very well know what a toxic relationship looks like, right? And so I'd love to move forward and speak into that, and maybe Yasmin, you can tell us so that we can kind of move into talking about what a conscious relationship is. Maybe first kind of speak into what does a not necessarily unconscious, but what is a like a disconnected relationship look like, or what are kind of the traits or flags that come up when there is a misaligned relationship, let's say?
Yeah. So for me, I always say to myself that when we're in an unconscious relationship, we're constantly blaming, right? We're not taking ownership. We're not taking personal responsibility. And I've come to learn myself, you know, even with my own relationship now, when something comes up and there's something I don't like about my partner, or, you know, there's a disagreement of some sort or misalignment, I step back, because the ego likes to get involved, and automatically we like to, you know, fight back, and we're like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. But at the end of the day, everyone's a mirror, and everyone's here to show you something about yourself. So I think it's really special to have these people in your life, because they could show you your own stuff. They show you your own shadows. And I know shadow work is such a big thing now. It's such a buzz term, and it's such a really big topic that everyone's starting to get into. People are starting to take personal responsibility for their own stuff. And that's awesome, because that's how we move towards becoming more conscious and being able to create those relationships that we truly want. And, you know, no relationship is perfect. I always like to say, just because something is conscious doesn't mean it's perfect. It just means that both parties are understanding the role that they're playing in their own suffering, and they're understanding how to connect and how to disagree, essentially, you know, because we're always going to disagree. There's always going to be stuff that comes up, and we're not always going to understand our partners or our friends or family members. But if we can begin to see it from a place of learning and have a growth mindset, that's when everything changes.
Yes, that's so beautiful. I love the way you expressed it, like the role that we play in our own suffering, because a lot of the times we don't realize like it's just us creating this massive suffering for ourselves. And it's nothing to do with, oh, he did this or she did that, or he said this, or my boss keeps doing this to me, or, you know, whatever it is. It's yes, I love that. Taking ownership. That's so true.
Thank you, Yumi. And sometimes it's as simple as setting a boundary. You know, sometimes like that's really all we need to do. Again, it depends on the situation with the relationship you're in, but sometimes it's that simple to just set a boundary with the person, or, you know, ask for whatever it is that you need, rather than going, you know, back and forth and blaming the other person for not giving you what you want. You know, so communication, of course, plays a really big role. And again, it comes down to taking ownership of what is it that you truly want for yourself and for the relationship.
Yes, so beautiful. Do you want to speak into that, Roger?
Yes. Okay.
How does someone define or identify whether or not they are in a conscious relationship or not?
But one of the first clues is when you keep repeating them, when you keep attracting the same thing, when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's showing you, well, wait a minute, something's out of whack here. And so something's happening here. So I took it back to, if you think of the law of attraction, we're bringing things into our lives that we need for our personal development, for our growth, for our evolvement. Sometimes we're carrying around a whole bunch of garbage that we have to get in touch with before we can attract the person who would match who we've become. That's really what it is. So, you know, an example I have in my program, and I think, and Yasmin, you kind of spoke to this, or Yumi, I think you might have said it too. In my program, I have a thing on relationships. But I said, don't start with your personal ones. If you're in a relationship right now, don't start with that, because that's already probably a little screwed up. You probably attracted the wrong person, maybe. So we're going to start with all of your others, your parents, your friends, your bosses, your work, because it's everything. We only know ourselves through relationship. That's all that it is. But the intimate ones get crazy if we haven't figured out who we are. So then I have them go through this whole process of, you know, really looking at what they want in a relationship, what they want in a relationship, you know, to get that. But first of all, I have them examine all of the ones that they're in, because through that examination, you'll start to see some of your patterns. As Yasmin said, setting boundaries, I couldn't do that. I had to recognize there was something within me that didn't allow me to own myself, to love myself enough that I could set boundaries. And that's what a lot of people are doing as well. So once we work through that and we start to uncover all of that, people become more empowered, and then they're more likely to attract what they want, which is why Yasmin said her relationships started not working, because she changed. And then that didn't align anymore, you know?
Yes. Yes, Roger, I love, love, love what you said. And that last part, so true, because I always tell people a breakup is just a misalignment of vibration. That's really what it is. When we break up with someone, it's just our vibration, the frequency. We're not on the same frequency anymore. And that's okay. That doesn't mean one person's better than the other. It just is, and there's neutrality to that. It's just like you need to find someone who can match that. And the other person needs to find someone who can match theirs, and acceptance of that is really, really difficult, because we naturally, our egos don't want to let go. We want to hold on to what we know, to the comfort that we're so used to. So that's why we put ourselves through suffering sometimes longer than we should be with that person.
Right. This is something that I'm so glad you said that, because I need people to really understand this, because there are several people who are in abusive relationship, and a lot of women. Let's talk, men too, but mainly women is what we see. And then we will judge them. Why are you still there? Why don't you just leave?
Right.
Not understanding that they have become comfortable. So we become comfortable in our misery because it's safe. And so going out into the unknown is too scary. So let's just stay here and be miserable. But again, there's stuff that's built into that we have programmed ourselves into believing that way, or having those kinds of, behaviors, so to speak. So
totally, Roger. I love that. It's so true. It's so much easier to stay in something uncomfortable than it is to change everything, and to know that, like, okay, I have a journey of the unknown ahead of me if I do break up with this person. Because not only am I breaking up with this person, I break up with their friends, their family, the places we've been to, all the memories we've had. So it's kind of like a domino effect. Mm-hmm. Everything starts falling, and that it's loss after loss after loss. So that's why it's so much easier to be like, I don't want to have to go through any of that pain, and I'd rather stay with the devil I know than the devil I don't.
Yes.
And also we come into this from our families as well. We're influenced by so many things. So for instance, my parents, love them dearly. However, they fought all the time. All I knew was, and they stayed married for 25 years and then got divorced. So think about that. You're looking at all of this history of this dysfunction, and you're exposed to it. You don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. Mm-hmm. How can you model that, or try to create something? So it's a new learning process that I had to go through to see, this is why I'm acting like this. I just picked up stuff from them.
Yes, that is so true, Roger. And my goodness, I was it was literally what was on my mind when you were speaking into that, because I have the same dynamics in my family as well. It's like you almost come to understand that this is what a relationship looks like, and that it's just normal to have like physical abuse or verbal abuse, and that's just kind of how it is, and it's okay. And as a woman, mostly, like you said, you just kind of take it, and because it is what it is, and you don't want to like destroy the relationship. And that brings me back to what you said about like examining the patterns in our lives. And there is this concept of like the types of attachment, which I blew my mind when I honestly read about it. Like there's anxious attachment, and there's avoidant attachment, and there's secure attachment. So I see you nodding, Yasmin. So I'd love to speak into that, because when I read about that just like blew my mind. Like, holy God, that's why I get so like, that's just how I am, because I've created this pattern, and it's been since I was like, 3 years old, and it's just the same pattern repeating. So
yeah, totally, Yumi. I mean, like, I remember the first time I started to learn about attachment styles, this was a few years ago, and I read the book Attached by Amir Levine, I think that's his name, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this really like was a slap to the face, because I was like, what? This is crazy. This is mind-blowing. I knew nothing. I didn't even know what an attachment style was before reading that. And when I read that, I was like, this all makes sense. And at first I felt like I judged myself. I won't lie and say like I took that easily. Like it was like a little bit of a blow to the ego, because I'm like, damn, I'm such an anxious, like I'm an anxiously attached person.
Yes.
And I was always jealous in relationship, and I was always possessive, and I was always like, yeah, who you texting? Like, what girls you talking to my exes? You know what I mean? And it would rile me up. Or if an ex told me like, oh, I'm going to hang out with a female friend, that would I would feel the anxiety in my body. I would feel like, like a panic attack coming on. And I realized, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this really breaks it down, because that's our blueprint. And like Roger said before, it's what we see growing up, and that's all we really know. So if we saw that playing out, or codependency playing out in our family dynamic, that's what's going to happen in our future relationships, and any of them, and it really was mind blowing to learn about that, because it changed my perspective. And I started to be more conscious of how I showed up in my relationships, and whenever I did feel jealousy, or whenever I did feel, this sense of wanting to control my partner, or wanting to change my partner, it's like, I stepped back and I'm like, hold on a second, this is just a response that I'm having, and that doesn't mean I have to necessarily act on it. I can observe, acknowledge that this is coming up for me, but I could step back and not do it. Because it really is an addictive habit of wanting to immediately, it's an emotional addiction. You immediately want to react. But when we learn how to step back from that, the whole game changes, and then we can begin to reprogram, that attachment style, and become a little bit more secure. I'm not saying that you're going to change overnight. This takes a lot of practice, but if we can be more aware, it really does help a lot.
You're so good. I just love this so much. We're just going to jump up. We're just going to go back and forth with this. It's so perfect. Okay. So I went on a 4-year experiment with this. Wow. That Yasmin just explained so beautifully. I had a roommate. Okay. So this was not an intimate relationship. We're just a roommate. And it was weird how we came together. I go, wait a minute, this is about something else. Didn't know what. I said, but I'm going to go with it, because first of all, I never wanted to have a roommate ever. And so the reason that I would do this said, okay, this is something that's coming to my experience for a reason. And I started to notice that certain things he would do would trigger certain things within me. Again, that's why I said this, when you can get away from your personal relationships or your marriages and all of that, you can probably see this a little bit better. And so there were things that were happening where he would do things and go, well, why aren't you telling me? Why aren't you inviting me? Why isn't that happening? And it kept going on. And I go, And then there was one day I'm sitting there and I'm just so angry. And I thought, oh, I'm not, as Yasmin said, I'm not going to react to this. Mm-hmm. I just sat with it. Mm-hmm. I just sat there because I couldn't sit. I said, first of all, I know had enough awareness to know it had nothing to do with him. Right. This was stuff that was within me that was still coming up. A neediness, a need to be taken, whatever we were missing, we're here trying to get it from our relationships instead of going inside and trying and attempting to find it there. So this was, and I remember one day I just sat there in this pain. It was misery. And I just said, I'm just going to sit here until it's gone. And it left. And then I thought, oh, wow, that was a really good breakthrough, because I had an awareness that it was bringing up this stuff that I needed to let go of. And it served many other purposes too, because, and this is why I love talking about relationships, because I was judged for having this person in my life, for having this person around. I said, oh, that's another thing I'm afraid of too, being judged. So let me have this.
Yep.
Let me move through that. So for me, it's always about what can we uncover, unearth, that's been holding us down, that causes us to be more of ourselves and accept ourselves and love ourselves.
Yes. Oh, Roger, I love it. Yes, because it all comes down to that. It all comes down to really learning about how we show up and what our little quirks are and our habits are, because essentially, the more we get in tune and in touch with who we are at the core, the better our relationships can be. We're going to naturally show up better for others because we're showing up for ourselves. So and that's a gift. That's the greatest gift you can give anyone.
That's so beautiful.
Go ahead.
Go on, Richard.
Okay, I'll tell you, I'll give you another one. My assistant, this was years ago, he thought I was crazy and he said, don't do that. And I said, no, I'm going to. I created a video and I said, it's all my fault. This is going back to what Yasmin was saying about blaming.
Yeah.
You see, because that's the other thing that we will do. When something comes up, it's so much easier to say, you did it, it's your fault, that's what it is. I said, okay, I'm going to change that. I'm going to say, no, it's my fault. I don't care what it is. If I say it's my fault, then I'm going to say, why? What did I want to learn? What did I want to develop? What did I want to overcome? There's something there. That's why if I accept it, I can kind of see it didn't show up in my experience accidentally. It showed up in my experience to help me to move in a new way. So it just became and I love that when it was kind of, I did change the title though. He wouldn't let me use that title.
It's, but it's, I love the way that you express it. You know, for me, it changed a lot when I started to almost like call every relationship in my life a teacher, because everyone is a teacher, but it's like the trick is finding out like, hey, what are you here to teach me? Like, are you because it's also like we were talking about attachment styles. It's so interesting because if you're anxious and you have like, Audrey, you were saying like this neediness or sense to feel like comforted or recognized or seen and loved, then it's so interesting because almost always we attract the opposite of that, like an avoidant attachment style who wants nothing to do with anything like intimate or close, or like just stay away. Don't come next to me. I don't want to feel any feelings. And it's like this power struggle that is like so painful, you know, but when we realize like, oh, you're being so avoidant and pushing me away because I have inside me a need that has not been met, where I have not been like loved or seen or heard. And I'm anxiously wanting to take that away from you or from you. And like this power struggle, but it's beautiful to see that everyone is a teacher. Go on, Roger.
You bring up something else too. Okay, so I'll talk about it. There are a bunch of folks out there, some of are psychologists, doctors, and all of that, saying how, you know, about narcissists and stay away from them, and empaths and narcissists. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. And I thought I'd take a whole different approach to it because I lived with a narcissist and I'm an empath. So I understand that, because when we're empathic, we accept so much. We just give, and we're sensitive to everything too. So that makes it worse. We feel absolutely everything. And so then a narcissist will come in and want to take everything from you. That's all they care about is themselves, and we're completely opposite. So why would we come together? And so the doctors say, just get away from them, just leave once you know. And I thought, don't want to do that. No, I would rather become empowered. I would rather allow that not to affect me. I would rather move beyond instead of running, because guess what? I'm going to do it again. I'm going to, and that's exactly what I did. You know, every single time I attracted the same person until I was willing to heal me. It becomes different, you know, and that's what I had to move through. So it's funny. I just today I saw so many YouTube videos, you know, about narcissists and empaths and stay away. And okay, maybe we can work through that.
Indeed.
Yes, Roger, I love that. And like I love to see it as like just the universe is putting you in like relationship boot camp. You know what I mean?
Yes,
just, like,
exactly.
You gotta learn your lesson at some point. With someone, you gotta learn your lesson. You know, you gotta move up the ladder. You know, you gotta move up. And that's sometimes it's the only way to move up is to like face our own stuff with a partner that is just kind of clearly showing it to us. So we can really attract, like you said, Roger, we can attract better relationships through that. So you know, painful. Sometimes it's growing pains. Right. That's why they call it growing pains. But sometimes we have to go through certain things.
And then again, it's also depending on what I call your evolutionary journey. You know, I really do understand that. I mean, we're all doing different things here. And for some people, it might be better for them to leave bad relationships. That is absolutely, because then what they're saying is, oh, now I'm willing to take care of myself. Right. You know, they're not running necessarily. See, so it becomes different. And some people will stay because they're afraid, but other people will say, okay, nope, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave because I have decided now that I am going to take care of me. Right. But as you said, that's sometimes really challenging for people to make that step.
That's beautiful. And, you know, it brings me also to a stage like that Yasmin was mentioning, the judgment that we sometimes go through. And, you know, sometimes in the spiritual kind of community and like phrasing things in a way that sometimes is pretty hurtful. Like for instance, there's a common phrase where people say, well, through what in your vibration got this to you? Like you attracted such an unhealthy, toxic
I know what you said. Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder what like really bad stuff inside you has caused that. And it's such a like it's a stab in the heart, like like what?
Shaming.
It's
shaming.
and it's it creates judgment, like you were saying, Yasmin, like what on earth do I have going on inside me to attract like this narcissist or this liar or this cheater or whatever it is. And so how do we move out of that? How do we move out of like from looking at it in like a self-judgment, like what on earth inside me has attracted this, into how can I grow from this? Like it's not something icky inside me, it's a lesson that I am meant to like learn from. How do we do that?
Well, Yasmin did it. She delved into studying and courses.
Yes, exactly, Roger. That's literally, I mean, speaking for personal experience, like for me, it was really hard for me, to move out of that space, because I was like judging and blaming myself. I'm like, why am I always attracting? That was the question. That was the catalytic question that I like asked myself. And I'm like, why am I constantly getting like partners that are just like, narcissistic and manipulating me and just not being there for me? And, I started to feel like, is it me? Is it something within me? And then as I started to grow, I started to realize this acceptance of we're all human. And, we all have shadow sides and we all have good things as well, and if we can accept and embody all of that whole package, it's really empowering, so it's all about that acceptance. It's all about letting go. I think a lot of the time there's this perfectionism tied to it of like, if I, especially in spiritual circles, like I have to heal constantly, or I have to do to become a perfect person, or to, attract the perfect partner. And, the truth is we might not heal all our wounds in this lifetime. We might not do all of that, but the most important part is that we can accept where we are on our journey, and we can accept who we are, as long as we are also at the same time acknowledging the things that we do have to shift and change, taking ownership. So it's a balance, and that's a hard balance to find. But I think the more you go inward and the more you connect to that inner wisdom, that inner compass that we all have, the easier it becomes.
You were speaking into a question that's in the chat, actually. I don't know, because this is what Christine is asking. And so I don't know,
you want to speak into that? Yes, let's go ahead and answer Christine's question. She says, what tips would you give to someone who's wanting to enter back into finding healthy romantic relationships after a year of stepping back from it all and breaking the patterns?
Well, first of all, you're doing it. You said stepping back. You're doing all the stuff. You became aware of what was going on. You said, I'm going to break the patterns. You took time off. You started breaking the patterns. You've been doing that. And now the next thing is you said stepping. And so it's baby steps. You gently step into that next part and allow it to unfold and develop. That's all. But you've done all the work already. This is so perfect because you said, and you know this, Christy, you stepped back for that time to heal because you knew there was stuff in you, and you've done a lot of that, but it doesn't, as Yasmin just said, it doesn't happen all right away. So you take your steps, because now you're going to get something different, because you've become so aware that you are worth so much more. Did any of that sound right to you, Christy?
You can unmute yourself and express anything you want, T, if you like.
Hi, friends. My name's T. Yeah, my Zoom just likes to go back to my birth name, but I prefer using T these days. Yeah, just really appreciate your advice. Yeah, it's funny. Relationships have always been the hardest thing for me to understand, and so just seeing the patterns, like, I started to just laugh and expect the same thing to happen from the minute I met someone. And so just it finally, like I think Roger said, you got to learn at some point, right? There's going to be one person, one situation that really is just like, it's the breaking point, and it's like, okay, you need to change. And so this was just extremely uncomfortable new territory for me to step into, with being completely alone for almost a year now, doing some traveling, taking some time off of nursing school, and just discovering what the patterns are and filling myself up with unconditional love and connection to spirit. And that's what keeps me going. That's the priority, right? And
that's exactly what I felt, and I just wanted you to appreciate it. That's exactly what you've done.
Yeah, you've done the work, and I think there's a delicate dance between the work that we put in and also allowing things to flow, and being open to receiving whatever is meant to come our way. So once you realize it's that dance of, I've done the work, I've done what I could, I've done what's in my power, and I did it with like healthy intention. And as long as you know that and you're open to receiving what comes next, then things fall into place.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I love what you expressed, T, when you said, now I can see it coming, because that's what the inner work and the awareness does. Like you can like see it coming from a mile away and be like, not doing that again. Done that a million times. Thank you. Like, next.
You can swipe left a little easier, right?
Yes. Yes.
Something I would like to add too is just a fun tool that I have discussed with people in my communities over the past year or two, is the creation of a wills, wants, won'ts list for setting boundaries with people, whether it's with family, a romantic relationship, a friendship, a partnership, business wise, just saying, hey, okay, these are the hard no's, this is where I draw the line. And then, okay, this is what I want, right? These are the energies, the experiences that I want to bring forth more of. And then these are some wills, things that either I'm open to compromise on, or some things that I as a person will always, be my authentic self. I will not make assumptions. I will not take things personally. Examples like that.
You will probably see you should be working with Yasmin, and you guys will do some great stuff together. So you've done the same thing that she's done. You've learned so much, and you could put this together and do some great work and help a lot of people.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful work right there, and that's true self-awareness. It's just knowing how can I show up in any of my relationships? What is it that I need to communicate with my friend or my partner or my family member? So that's taking your power back, in my opinion.
It is. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, T. That is a powerful one. Let me reiterate. So a wills, wants, and won'ts list.
Yes, ma'am. And draw the lines, and I say too, have openness and flexibility. Say to people, hey, I'm willing to have regular check-ins like this, and to sit down and go, hey, I realized some things, or hey, I processed through some things, and this is no longer a hard no for me, situations like that.
Thank you for
Megan
sharing.
asked the question as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to say yes. She's going to say what? I'll explain it.
Go on.
I know, you want to read it, Yui?
Yes, sure. So Megan says, is it healthy to take a break from a romantic relationship to grow as an individual, or is it possible to grow and work on yourself while in a serious relationship? The $1 million question, Megan.
And that's why I said both answers are correct. Both answers are yes. Because if you decide that if you love the person and you decide you want to stay with them, and this is really, you feel that, then there's something that you're going to gain for yourself in your journey, your evolution, by working through whatever that is. Or it could be you, and I'm not going to say this, but it could be that you're feeling, no, this is not right for me, and I think I'm supposed to go, and you're not doing that yet. And so that's okay, we got there. Yeah. And so, yes. So give yourself permission to have what you should have. That's really what it is. And there's a part of you that knows you're going to be judged or thought that and what you have to go through. No, you have to put you first because that's what's coming up. Okay.
Yes, Roger, I love that. And I wanted to add, I think, again, it takes a lot of awareness to even ask a question like that, Megan. So amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
The honesty and the openness is great. Again, it depends on both parties as well, and communicating like what you feel is best for the situation, and sometimes we need to go inward and we do need to listen to that call. So if that's the call that you're getting of like, I need to be by myself, or I need to grow at my own pace, and I can't have another energy with me at the moment to kind of, interfere with that, then so be it, own that and take complete total power over that and do what you feel is right for you.
Beautiful. And to add a little bit into that, just from my own experience, what my experience has been is that, because like you said, Yasmin, it is a very much like a vibrational and frequency thing. That there is a moment that happens that it is almost like you get like kicked out. It's like a vortex, and you're just like kicked out, and it's just something happens, and it's almost and yes, it's inevitable, and it's almost like you don't even need to think about it. It's so clear, it's so obvious, it's so, whatever it is, whether it's staying or leaving, the universe makes it so clear because you have made that intention of like, please show me. And we say this a lot in these circles, like we forget to ask sometimes. And sometimes it's as simple as like, I would really like to be shown if this is a relationship that I should be staying in or not. And, always there will be messages. And like with anything, if we don't get the message, it kind of comes back a little bit stronger, and then it comes back a little bit stronger. And then at some point it's like, oh God, okay, I get it now, whatever it is, whether it's staying or leaving. So yeah, from my experience, it has just been like, listen and wait and see.
And I always tell people, I talk about my horrible relationships all the time because I never want people to judge themselves. Don't judge yourself for what you're going through, because it's to help you in some way. Once you uncover that. It was so when this first came up about the talk, what it was going to be today, I said, sure, I'd talk on that. Because I know that everything is about, we discover who we are through relationships, everything aspects of it. So yeah.
Love it, Roger. And sometimes it's painful. Sometimes what we discover is painful, and we have to honor that as well, of like, we're not just going to put a band-aid and be like, oh, whatever, it's just, this is just meant to be, and like kind of brush it off and bypass it. Like, no, we do have to give it its due diligence, and we do have to cry, grieve, be in that painful state sometimes to be able to move out of that. It's the idea of going through a dark night of the soul. It's the same thing. Like sometimes we do have to be in that little cocoon so we can learn and we can grow. And once we're ready to break out, we'll know when that time comes, and then we can, do whatever it is that we need to do. But in the time being, that might be a really painful decision that you have to take. So honoring that, I think, is a big part of the journey of, stepping into your power and learning more about yourself.
Yes.
And Yasmin does something else too. I'm just going to talk about it because
Tell me. I love it, Roger. You're so great.
She connects you to other stuff that's going on in your journey, because we're here, we have the soul connection. There are other things that we are moving through in our lives that we don't understand sometimes, and we need some outside help to help us come to get it. So you're not doing anything wrong, you just don't understand this part of your journey, that's all. So, yeah.
I love it. So true. Yes, Roger, thank you for saying that. It's so true. I opened Pandora's box.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's really truly, I feel, what relationships are. They are like a huge Pandora's box, because it's are you going to look inside, or are you just going to keep doing what you're doing? And I feel that is it's one of the biggest paradigm shifts that we're having right now, because if we think back to, like, even as far back as like my parents or my grandparents or my great-great-grandparents, it wasn't a thing that you leave relationships. It's not a thing. You find someone, you get married for 40, 50 years, one of you dies and then the other one follows, and end of the story. Like, that's it. And even if you've hated each other for 50 years, it doesn't really matter. But it's a huge paradigm shift now of like understanding also this concept that we've almost been sold into as a society of like the one or Prince Charming, and there's just one relationship and you got to find that one, and if you don't, then it's like you're doomed. And it's always that question, like, is he the one? Is she the one? Are they the one? And this incessant questioning. And so I really want to speak into that. Is there one person for each of us? And that's it.
You brought up something else that I want to go to, because you started talking about your parents, and that's where I wanted to go back to, because Yasmin gets this too. When I talked about my parents, we have to recognize that we've developed patterns that we don't even know. We don't even remember them. They're coming from wherever. And some of it is ancestral. Some of it's passed down from long time. And so that's why I never want people to kind of judge themselves. They're working through something that they were given to do in this earth on this time. And they're not aware of it. Now, I will say more people are becoming aware of it now, because we're going through a really intense time in the world. When we go through periods like that in our world, we start to look within a lot more. And relationships will come, all of that, everything is going to come into play. But we have to also remember, we are here now to help the world evolve. And the way we do that is by working through these things and becoming ourselves. And that's what we're all doing.
Yes, Roger. Yes, I love that. I'm just so excited right now, because I was literally thinking in my head, I'm like, we're all clearing out our karma, our ancestral stuff. And that's why we're going through such a crazy, chaotic time period. It's kind of like we have to, we're moving into this new paradigm, this new place. And I always look at it as you're moving into a new house, but you got, old dirty shoes. You got to clean them before you get into the house, the new pretty house, so we all have to do that on some level. And you're right, Roger, we're absolutely here to do that. And relationships are a big part of our life here on this planet. So that's a big part.
Thank you. So what would you say when it comes to like what we were speaking about? Do you feel that there is ultimately like one relationship that each person is meant to be in, and like they work their way to it or find them somehow? Or is it a more dynamic experience? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so personally, I think it's a more dynamic experience. I feel like we have different partners and soulmates at different levels of our life, and different levels of growth that we go through demands a different partner sometimes, and that's okay. There's no shame in that. If there is that one person that you end up sticking to, then that's great, and if it works out and you're happy, that's wonderful. But if you go through life learning and being with different partners, that's okay too. There's no shame. And I think, like you said, you need, like our grandparents and great-grandparents, there was a sense of shame if we didn't get married and find that one person, if we were like jumping around from person to person, and it's like, but there's nothing wrong with that, because through that we learn and we grow. And when we do that, again, if it works for us, then we can find the right person to be with. But I think it's very dangerous to get caught in the loop of the one. It's kind of like that same concept of the twin flame. It keeps us searching and searching and searching. And it's like, but there is no such thing as searching and searching, It just is. Like, if you find people that you connect with, then that's great. And so be it, date them, have fun with them, go out with them, explore. And if that feels right to you, and if not, that's okay too.
Let's talk about my grandparents. We'll talk about my grandparents, because that's what, they found the one. They were the people who found the one. And because they thought everybody should do exactly that. And they, if they saw something different, that's where it was. They were married, I don't know, 60 years or something like that. I gave them a 50th anniversary party. It was so wonderful. They were the perfect couple together. And they would look at my parents and go, what's wrong with you guys? So they're on different journey. They're on a different journey. And then they were so close, they were disconnected. My grandfather died first, as typically what happens with men. And then my grandmother was like, okay, well, I guess I'm done. And so a few years later, then she was gone. We've seen that so much as well. But that was a connection, a soul connection, as I call it, that they had. Others of us are meant to be more dynamic, as Yasmin said, just moving around. We'll figure it out. It's just a different soul path, we might call it.
Yes, that's beautiful. And sometimes also because it's almost like what we fear the most ends up happening to us. And I feel that sometimes when we get stuck into the dynamic of like, is this the one? Is this the one? Is this the one? We end up attracting relationships that are like, do not have any kind of like longevity, that have no, future kind of unfoldments or anything, because we're so focused on the question, like, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? And, it's understanding that with relationships, there is no right or wrong. It's just, it's a teacher and it's a journey, and that it's okay to move on and move forward. And I feel like it's getting into that secure attachment place where it's okay to have people with you, but also to let them go. Go on, Roger.
I'm talking about my friend Kathy Eldon. It's in the book, so you guys she wrote a book called In the Heart of Life or something like that. She had a lot of traumatic things that happened. Her son was murdered. I mean, just a lot of things and she turned it into a passion that she wanted to make a difference in the world. But then she got to the place where she says, I want a relationship now. She had been divorced from her other husband, and so now she's been single, and she's in her she was probably in her 50s at that point. And so she wasn't going to settle for anything less. And I've actually taken this from her and I've given it to people to use. And so she sat and she made a list of what she wanted. She wrote down everything that would work for her in a relationship. Now, she's done a lot of work on herself by this point, so she was pretty clear about all of this and what she's processed through in her life. And she wrote down all these things, and then the person showed up. But she waited, she wasn't going to go out and say she knew that she deserved this, and then she could wait for the right one to show up. So that's what she did, and that guy showed up. And it's just such a beautiful story. She wrote about it in her book as well.
So beautiful. And understanding that we deserve is a big one.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up, because and a lot of us, again, because it's all that we have seen is toxicity, we feel that it's almost like, this is what I deserve, like this is what I'm worth. Like my parents had it that way. Why should I be any different? Or who do I think I am to have like a perfect relationship? And like you said, Yasmin, like there is no such thing as perfect relationship, but it's a place where you are able to grow and change, and almost like a place that can hold space for you as you change. And I love that you brought up in conversation, Yasmin, you mentioned twin flames, and that's like a huge buzzword in the spiritual community. And I have my opinions on it that I will keep to myself. But what is your perspective on twin flames? And we'll probably just end with that, because we can't really talk about conscious relationships without mentioning twin flames.
Totally.
Thing. So let's end with a bang.
Yes, I love it. Thank you, Yumi. So the twin flame, I remember when I first started being on the spiritual journey and reading about like relationships and stuff, and I got caught up in that like rabbit hole of the twin flame, right? And I'm like, oh my God, is my ex my twin flame? Like, do I have to hold on to him? You know what I mean? And I was just so like, I remember I was like up until 2 a.m. reading about them. Like, I'm so stressed because I'm focused. I'm hyper focused right now on the concept of the twin flame. And then like as I started to get like learn more about myself and all of that along the journey, I started to realize like the twin flame concept was personally keeping me in this loop of like staying in toxicity and just kind of like entertaining it. You know what I mean? Instead of like setting myself free from that, which I knew I wanted to set myself free. I kept staying because I was like, but that's my twin flame, like that's the one, that's the twin flame, that's my other half. And in my opinion, I feel like we are all individual souls. We might have soul contracts with other people, but I don't believe that the other person has that, that other half of us. I think we're all complete and whole as we are, and other people add to us. They bring us They bring us that joy. They bring us that excitement, that happiness. But no one is that happiness. You know, like we cultivate our own. And I think there's so much power there. It's the concept of empowerment when we realize like it's all within me and I can get that joy and that happiness. And anyone that comes my way, whether it's a friend or a partner, whoever, you know, if they leave, I don't necessarily lose myself. I don't necessarily lose part of myself because I'm still whole as I am. You're like, yeah, it might be painful, but I'm still whole. So I think that that's an important, you know, thought when you're in these, you know, in these like rabbit holes of spirituality as well.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, I love that. And because, you know, I myself have witnessed, you know, through so many others, like exactly what you said, the desire to endure like abuse or any kind of like toxicity, because they, you know, in their reality, they are so convinced that this is their twin flame, their other half, like you said, their, you know, whatever other label we kind of place on things, and that it's okay for them to treat me that way, and it's okay for me to just take it because, you know, like they're my twin flame, I'm meant to be with them. It's or like I had a you know, I had a reading and this reader said that this is why it's twin flame, so like obviously, you know, and it's like, you know,
I know what's going on.
it's like don't give away your power to anything. Sorry, go on, Roger.
Okay, so Yumi was upset because people. I'm sorry.
I'm not upset. I'm just curious.
No, but you also started to sense that people were making things a mess of themselves by thinking there's just this 110 twin flame, and you came to understand that no, it could be anything, any person who shows up who allows you to see more of who you are. See, that's it. Who allows
because you are the flame.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
You are the flame. The whole freaking flame.
Right, and so that new age, as you said, that thing that I've lived through, I'm telling you, I was with somebody who just, my former roommate, he said, this is my twin flame. As Yasmin was saying, you keep going around looking, thinking that that's what it is, and it never gets fulfilled. So now it's that desperation, what a lot of people are doing in relationships, and they're not recognizing it again, which is why I like for them to start at a place. So let's figure out what's going on with you, because they think that the relationship is going to complete them. It's going to make them feel whole and safe and all of that. And that's not why you were born.
Yes, I love that.
Totally.
And you know, I love how both of you expressed it, and it's a beautiful reminder that anything that ultimately takes away your power is not something that you should continue engaging with, you know, whatever it is. And a lot of the things in like the spiritual community, because we kind of smack the label spiritual on them, people kind of take it and as a truth, and it's almost like we give away our own sense of understanding, our own sense of discernment over to others who have said, oh, this is how it should be, or oh, this is what it is. Well, who said this is what it is? You know, because spirituality itself can turn into its own religion almost, you know, if we just kind of disengage our own hearts and our own discernments. And so, yes, I love how both of you expressed it. And whether or not we have like the one or the multiple persons, it's really how you feel about yourself.
I'm gonna let Yumi take this one.
Let's see. So MP Karen Esposito says, can you talk about the Soul Connect community? It's my first time joining. I'm on the spiritual path and love connecting to others who are also on the path.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us and for taking the time and space to be with us, Karen. And yes, of course, I can tell you a little bit more. It's actually the perfect time to tell you a little bit more about Soul Connects as we begin to wrap up. So for Karen and for anyone who is also joining us for the first time, Soul Connects is basically an online spiritual community and a platform where we engage practitioners like Yasmin, like Roger. We have multiple practitioners on the platform as well. Where really it's a community of vetted and reputable practitioners who are all like-hearted, like-minded, have the desire to empower others, have the desire to spread that authentic message from an authentic place. And so you can go to soulconnects.com to see our other practitioners, to kind of see what other services we offer. And we also offer services to practitioners where they can build their own business through our platform. And we offer things like marketing and a community of practitioners as well, and different types of engagement. So I would encourage you to go to soulconnects.com. Maybe if it resonates with you, you can also book a consultation, and I would love to talk you through anything that you have a question about. So I hope that answers your question, Karen.
Yeah. The bottom line is we're a bunch of people who decided to come together because we just can't help helping people.
We can't help
Love
helping.
that. Ruth.
Yes, it's an affliction that we all have.
Yes.
Thank you. Any last thoughts about conscious relationships from Yasmin or Roger? Anything that you would like to express before we close up? Anything from you, Yasmin or Roger? If you want to express anything before we close up.
I'm just going to say that I'm just so happy that we did this, and I want people to understand, because I know a lot of people get really nuts with themselves about relationships, but just understand they're just part of your evolvement. There's part of what your soul contract, if you want to think of it that, whatever. And as you work with them, you discover who you are. That's all.
I love it, Roger. I completely agree, and I think relationships can be such an obsessive topic, that we're like, oh my God, I need to, again, going back to, I need to find the one, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. And I think when we have this like safe space, even the ambulance agrees, when we have that safe space to be together and to connect, I think it's just, there we go again.
Yeah, confirmation.
That's a sign, you guys. So we're doing great.
Indeed.
So yeah, anyways, I'm just really grateful for all of you for showing up. And, I always like to say one of the biggest parts of doing the work is showing up. So that's literally 90% of the work. So you're all doing it. And I think it's really special.
Yes. Thank you so much. And Karen says great information, especially looking at one's ancestry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we will be doing a Thriving Circle next month, I believe, that's going to also involve shadow work and looking at ancestry and ancestral patterns and stuff like that. And I know both Yasmin and Roger are into all of that juicy stuff. So we're going to get deeper into that next month. So I look forward to that. Well, thank you so much, Yasmin. Thank you so much, Roger. I have thoroughly enjoyed today's circle, and I'm sure everyone who has joined has too. And I just love the way that you have spoken into the topic. And really the main thing that has stood out for me is how you both kind of approach it from an energy of grace, to really approach relationships with grace for others and for ourselves, and not beat ourselves up about it so much, because it's hard, it's hard. Like, it's not easy, and it's meant to be challenging, I would say, because it's such a huge growth area. So thank you both for touching and speaking into it with such grace. That was beautiful. And for all our community and our viewers, next week's Thriving Circle is going to be about the astrology and the 9-year cycle. And if you don't know what the 9-year cycle is, you will find out next week with our amazing astrologers next week. So tune in for that. I look forward to it too. It's another interesting topic. So thank you again for joining us. And if you want more information about Soul Connects, please be sure to go to soulconnects.com, soulconx.com. If you want to know more about Roger or know more about Yasmin, their profiles are on the page as well. And I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Bye all.